I will now welcome Sara Isaković. Aside from being an Olympic silver medalist, she is a performance psychologist. She's also a Berkeley University graduate, and in her master's thesis, she focused on aviation psychology. She had also worked with US Navy SEALs. She had studied, she had explored the effect of mindfulness training, also in airline pilots, and in any field for people to give optimal top performance. Aren't we all interested in that? So, please, Sara, the floor is yours.
Thank you. I will be addressing the topic of ethics, maybe a little bit more from a sports background. That's the way I know how. I was introduced to ethical behavior ever since I was very little, so that means my notion of ethics was shaped mostly through my swimming career, through my sports career. And luckily I had coaches, parents, the whole environment healthy enough to teach me the strong moral values and what is right and what is wrong. And I knew all along that the only way for me to compete was to be clean. There was absolutely no other choice. And I stuck to it, and I still, in the world of sports, I strongly represent anti-doping. I'm an ambassador for it, so it's a topic that I'm very passionate about. I mostly lecture about psychology of doping, but doping is unethical behavior, so we'll make it very appropriate for this conference as well. I was always really curious what is going on in our brains. Why? So these people that cheat, and in my sport, I'm telling you, I know a lot of people. Well, that sounds bad. Okay, no, I don't know a lot of people. I know a lot of stories of people, of athletes who dope. And I always question myself, how do these people, that some of them I know, these really nice, genuine people, how is it that they come to making unethical decisions? How do they fall into these traps? And I was curious, and of course I loved school. I was the biggest geek, and I studied a lot of psychology, and then I went into neuropsychology. And today I want to present to you the story of the brain. How can we understand unethical behavior better from the perspective of neuroscience? And I was really, really, really fortunate to study neuroscience in a very nice lab in San Diego. After graduating from Berkeley, I moved to San Diego to study brains of US Navy SEALs, Marines, and Olympic athletes. And we were here in this lab, we were trying to uncover the neural mechanisms of optimal performance. More specifically, what makes these people, these high performers, so resilient to stress? How are they, in times of stress, able to make appropriate decisions and adjust and do what is right? In different ways, but I mean very similar when it comes to ethical behavior. So I want us to understand today the story of the brain and what parts of the brain are important when we talk about ethical behavior. So I would love to stay on this slide, but hopefully because it's, maybe because it's rainy and gloomy outside, you would fall asleep looking at this brain. Some of you, do you love who likes science here, neuroscience? Okay, great, okay. So you're interested in the story. I would love to keep this photo, but honestly I believe people remember better through stories, so I chose something like this. I know it looks very childish, but I promise you you're going to remember better emotions, boss, and the mindful man than amygdala, insular cortex, and prefrontal cortex. I really believe so. And you can tell your kids at home about this story as well. So the three parts of the brain that I'd like you to understand today is the emotional part of the brain. It is the amygdala. The boss, yeah. You have a boss.
I'm joking. I say I'm boss.
You're the boss. Yeah, you're the boss. But every human being also has their own boss in their brain. But okay, we'll get to the boss and the role of the boss. We have the emotional center of the brain, which is very instinctive. We know amygdala is a part of the brain which is responsible for the fight or flight response, which means when we are perceiving to be in a stressful situation, we need a mechanism in the brain which is going to fire as soon as possible without our conscious awareness for us to run away from danger, to protect us. So that part of the brain is here. Very recent research has shown that amygdala is part of the fight or flight response, and that emotions are actually triggered after, and they're dependent on the way we perceive an event. But regardless, just for the story, let's call it the emotional part of the brain, the really instinctive, fast part of the brain. Then we have the boss of the brain. Can you imagine that? Here, the prefrontal cortex. If you touch your forehead, it's right behind there. Don't worry, it will always be there. What does the boss do? What does the boss do? What do you do? Who is Professor? Boss around. Well, yes. Commanding, executing decisions, planning. Controlling, it's true. In the prefrontal cortex, we have self-control. This is the part of your self-control. This is the inhibition part of your brain. So if you have kids that are below 25 years of age, any? Okay, yeah. Okay, well, so just please understand their behavior. Sometimes they don't have a very good inhibition center because this part of the brain, the boss, that decides, commands, controls, is not developed yet well. It only develops till the age of 25. So after 25, you should be fully responsible for your decisions. But what's most surprising that in this prefrontal cortex, you have moral behavior. In here, you have a center in the brain which is responsible for moral, ethical behavior. In here is motivation. In here is willpower. Willpower means in the moment when I have to do the right thing, I do it, I execute it. Right? So here is your moral and ethical center of the brain, which doesn't always function. Why? We'll learn soon. And not in you, some other people, the unethical ones. And then we have the third part of the brain, which is the mindful man. I call him the mindful man just because it is related to mindfulness. What we did in the lab, this is the insular cortex, and we were exploring how does mindfulness training, we put Navy SEALs and Marines and Olympic athletes through an 8-week mindfulness training course, and we were specifically looking at how does this part of the brain strengthen. The insular cortex is more here, but this is a cartoon, so it's fine. So how does the mindful man, the insular cortex strengthen as a result of mindfulness training, and how does awareness spark psychological resilience? Because as we will learn today, it really all that comes down to awareness. Awareness is the key factor that sparks resilience and consequently ethical behavior. I will tell you the story now. But this insular cortex, the mindful man has, what does he have on his head? Headphones. So what is this part of the brain doing? Listening. Yes, thank you. Listening, paying attention. We have a part of the brain that is responsible for consciousness. It's a conscious, fully awake part of the brain which is paying attention to everything that's going on in your mind, in your body, and what is going on in the environment around you. So that's really good news. You'll soon learn why people are walking on this planet not fully conscious and awake, and how that affects behavior. So these are, just remember, emotions, boss, and the mindful man. Does this sound pretty okay? Yeah, very simple. Okay. So what happens when we are presented with a reward, when we are presented with a promise, with fame, money, a better opportunity, power, a happier, healthier life? I mean, you name it. However you want to phrase this in your terms. With us athletes, this is, I want to win an Olympic medal. and I want to take the easy way out, and I want to cheat the system, and be famous and get money, and yeah. So our brain naturally is wired towards reward. So your mind, what it does in general already is it does absolutely everything to keep you away from the unknown, the stress, the unpredictable, the uncomfortable, and it moves you towards, we're wired to move towards a happier place, right? So that's just the general story. But what happens in understanding unethical behavior, what's very important is that we have to know that people that make these decisions, they don't come from a happy place, from a content place, from a place where they're relaxed and peaceful. Why people make unethical behaviors and unethical choices is because their brain is hijacked by a very unproductive emotion. And these emotions are usually fear, sadness, and anger. A person that is very happy and content and feels good in their own skin, I believe, will never make decisions that are harmful. Coming from a place of fear and moving towards a reward, the brain doesn't know, is the lion attacking me and I need to run to safety? Or am I miserable right now and I'm running towards a more promising reward and future? There's absolutely no difference in the brain. So coming from fear, it's usually what, so I'll get back to the whole story, but fear is usually, what if I don't make it? What if I don't fulfill expectations of my boss, of my company? What if I fail? It's a state of fear. So when we come from a state of fear, it's a stress-related emotion. Just like anger. Maybe somebody wants to prove someone else wrong, and that emotional source of anger, you're thinking, I'm going to prove you wrong, I can do this. That's again a stress-related emotion. Maybe a human being is in a place of misery and sadness and wants to escape that and move towards this better future, right? So when we are hijacked by our inner emotional world, these are very good emotions if we channel them in the right way, but if we let them hijack us in an unproductive way, the brain is basically full. It's a stress-related emotional world in here. And when the brain is under stress, and that's what we were exploring in my lab, what happens is the prefrontal cortex is blocked. And this is why I wrote here, the boss freezes or chokes or runs away. When our inner world is stress-driven, we are made neurologically to block the part of the brain which is responsible for decision-making, for executing the right decisions, for moral reasoning. Why? Because when our brain, of course, is driven by stress, again, we don't know, the brain doesn't know what's happening. It's just in a survival mechanism mode. And it wants to run away from a lion. And when you're running away from a lion, you don't have time to think. And especially morally and ethically decide what is right or wrong. So this part of the brain blocks. And when this part of the brain blocks, of course here, as you can notice, this mindful man is sleeping, we are unable to make those decisions because our behavior is driven by the emotional inner world. That's really how it is. So when we try and understand why people are making these decisions, it's really important to understand how are they thinking, how are they feeling. And the good news is we don't have to be trapped in this. We really don't have to be trapped in this very emotional inner world. And how we come about that is with awareness. So what happens when the center of the brain, the insular cortex, wakes up? When we are fully alert, conscious of what is going on. In time of stress, like I said, usually stress-driven, in my opinion, stress-driven states force us into unethical behavior. When that fires, and then this mindful man comes to life, what happens is this part of the brain is not only conscious and aware of what's going on. Hey, you know, how am I feeling? What am I thinking? What are my thoughts? This part of the brain is also really able to anticipate, and it's one of the best results that we got through our studies is the insular cortex, the aware part of the brain, is able to anticipate. So anticipating means, I'm aware of what's going on, but I'm also aware of the consequences and what might potentially happen as a result of this internal drama. And when the insular cortex, this mindful man, is fully awake, it's paying attention. It's like your little alarm system. It goes wake, like it goes like wake, 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 wake up, wake up, wake up. You're getting fired up. This doesn't look too good for moral and ethical decision making. So this part of the brain communicates to the prefrontal cortex and says, hey, there might potentially be drama if you don't take control. So when we are aware, the boss comes into action and says, okay, am I thinking straight? What do I need to do? What is right? What is my motivation? Thinking about consequences of my actions. This only happens when the aware part of the brain in stressful situations activates. And when the boss takes control, you have immediately top-down regulation, which means prefrontal cortex regulates emotions. It says, hey, emotions, quiet down. I need to think this clearly through. What are the consequences of these potential actions? And says, hey guys, quiet down. And then you make appropriate decisions. This is really how it works. I can tell you this little circle in here for every single day behaviors and actions. When we are fully conscious and aware, when I'm paying attention to how I'm thinking, how I'm feeling, how I'm perceiving a situation, that's the only time I can really make conscious decisions. But people are so caught up emotionally in whatever is waiting for them, and that promise and reward sounds so good that the emotions, whatever that place where it's coming from, oh, I want to escape sadness, I'm going to do it out of anger, I'm doing it out of fear because I'm scared, is so strong that you're driven towards that direction. When you're fully conscious and awake, it's beautiful to see in the functional magnetic resonance imaging, fMRI, when we put these performers through an 8-week mindfulness training course. Of course, we were testing resilience, but the brain mechanisms are exactly the same. When they're conscious, oh, I'm perceiving a stress, I understand what's going on, I'm tapping into my inner world, it's this interoceptive awareness, I have now full power and control to decide how I'm going to react to this stressor. And this is what it all comes down to. It's actually really simple. It's not, it's simple, but we need to train this part of the brain. Awareness doesn't just come about on its own. Unfortunately not. And when I work a lot with younger kids and musicians, and I did work with pilots and businessmen. The only thing I give them, the tools they need, is awareness training. You need to train your brain how to be fully conscious and aware in moments when you need to make the right decisions. Otherwise you don't. You can blame the wiring of the brain sometimes. I don't defend the dopers. They're fully responsible for their actions. But I can understand how a pressured situation full of expectations and these trustworthy relationships, when I spend more time with my coach than my parents, and this coach tells me, hey, listen, why don't you take this? This will do you good. It's going to boost your recovery, make you stronger. It's hard to blame those people sometimes in those decisions because they're only thinking, oh, I trust. Oh, and you know what? Maybe I want to make it. Maybe I want this reward. And they're not thinking. This part of the brain isn't on. Are you okay? Are you now just thinking about your internal mindful man if it's on? Does this make sense? Okay, so awareness. I really, really believe in awareness training. It's what you need in life when it comes to managing your thoughts, your emotions, your behaviors. If we're not aware, we cannot make changes. We cannot decide for ourselves because we're hijacked by this inner emotional world, and sometimes we're on autopilot and our brains were programmed by parents and environment, and sometimes those subconscious programs are not the healthiest ones. So we need to equip people with how am I thinking clearly, rationally, morally from a state of awareness. So what I put down here is that just for the end, usually our awareness starts here, right? So let's say you eat a cake and you're like, oh, I just ate a whole cake. Or you eat a pizza and you're like, oh, why did I eat a whole pizza? Where was your awareness before eating the pizza? Right? So our awareness, where does our awareness, or let's say you had a very stressful day at work, and then you come home and you burst out your emotions like, rah, rah, rah. I don't know, something isn't right. It's like, why didn't you take out the trash? Like, rah, rah. Why didn't you buy the right bread? I don't know, something happens. Or in the middle of, you driving and you start yelling at this person for no reason. They just, kind of pass by. Usually your awareness clicks in after, like, oh, I shouldn't have yelled. I'm sorry. Or you're like, oh, why did I just do that? That's way too late. People that dope and get caught, they only then become aware of their actions. Oh, is that what I did? And they still don't tell the truth because humans are so good at justifying behavior, and we do it every single day. Oh, I ate a cake because today is Friday and tomorrow is my aunt's birthday, so she just, I can have a cake whenever I want. We justify our behavior all the time. So this is where our awareness comes in. Where our awareness really needs to come in is at the beginning of it all. How are we even observing an event? How are we perceiving it? It's this perception that we need to train. And that's very subconscious, so we need to reprogram people's minds into, really believing in the moral values, and values need to be taught. And then it's, okay, I'm paying attention to how I'm perceiving the event. I'm also paying attention to the stories I'm telling myself. Is everything I'm thinking true? Am I just making this up and justifying myself? Or am I thinking straight? Am I aware of my emotions? How are my emotions trying to hijack me right now? Or maybe feeling a little bit more calm and at ease so that we can make appropriate decisions, right? And then what happens? It's a miracle. It's like everything we do is a result of who we are and what we believe in. And then actions are just a byproduct of our conscious, fully awake self. And then we do everything that is right for us. But it's really funny to talk about these things because if we analyze daily behavior, and it doesn't come down to ethics, but it just comes down to behaviors. It's like, oh, today it's raining. I don't want to go to the gym. I'm feeling lazy. You don't go to the gym. That's exactly how it is. Oh, I'm perceiving this event as, an opportunity. I think about, oh, this might be good for me. So you know what? Let's, stir up these emotions of promise and reward, and like, where is it leading me? There, that's my reward. Right? It all comes down to awareness. It really does. I would encourage all of you to start meditating. And it's kind of like brushing your teeth. It should be the same habit every single day. And incorporating it into schools and business programs. You really got to train your brain to decide what's right or wrong in the moments when that matters most. So hopefully that gives you a little insight why. Thank you so much.
A very important question. So if I meditate on a regular basis, I won't crave pizzas anymore?
So if you're, that's a very good question. So here's the deal, right? So when you have your awareness system active and you're fully awake, you're conscious, and you know, you're before even ordering a pizza, maybe you have the menu in your hands, and you're going through the options and you're thinking, okay, so this is the usual thinking is, oh, I should have a salad because I'm on a diet. And then you smell the pizza that just comes by and you're like, oh, but this pizza here sounds so good. And then your brain is like, but you really want the pizza because that's going to make you super happy right now. All you want to do is be happy right now. That's the point of the brain, right? The brain, if you don't activate your boss who's going to remind you of your motivation, hey, I want to be fit because I have a wedding in 3 weeks, the boss won't activate because, again, you're going to be flooded with these lovely promises of rewards. So the idea is, oh, I'm fully conscious and awake, and what I really, really want, the question is what I want. I want to make a healthy decision right now because it's going to make me feel better tomorrow. That's your awareness kicking in. And in that moment, you make a decision. And then sometimes you have a pizza, but then most times you have something else which is healthier. So
I won't stop craving pizza.
No, you won't stop craving pizza, but you're going to have more power to decide what you really want. Yeah.
Comment regarding pizza, but on the other hand, we can decide to give you a reward like once per month, rational, and
to do what once a month?
To do a reward for yourself.
Ah, reward. Yeah, of course. Yeah.
You have 10 pizzas.
Yeah, so, but that's what we do, right? So that's what we do. I lecture psychology of willpower with kids, and the thing is, of course, we're not robots. We don't have to make these decisions that are, you know, so relevant for us every day. But for example, me as an athlete, I had a reward, I had a treat, of course I had it. We need to have it because it makes us feel so happy. But at the same time, it's like, oh, I'm going to go out tonight and drink, you know, all night because I deserve a reward. I never did that in my whole swimming career. So because I knew how that decision would impact me tomorrow and after tomorrow. So yes, we're not robots. We don't need to, you know, do everything. We don't do what's right ever. We drive through the red light just a little bit. You're like, oh, I'm still a good human being. It's fine. We cheat. We lie. Like those little white lights. Oh, your parents. I don't know. Where did you go? Oh, I went there. Oh, okay. How was it? Good. You actually went somewhere completely else. Right, so and just understanding how important the idea is when in times of decision making, when we need to decide what is right or wrong, we have the power to do that.
Why meditation helps, and is the meditation the only tool from day-to-day basis? For example, I'm not a meditative type of the person. I would not choose that. What other options do we have?
We don't have to meditate to be aware.
Okay,
you can walk.
Do we have to wake up our awareness?
You are just fully conscious and aware of your thoughts, and maybe you're going to work, and you don't have to meditate. Meditating is just a very good exercise. It's kind of like going to the gym. It's very powerful. But if you're driving to work and you have thoughts of worry just flood you, or excuses, complaints, blah, 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 just like a lot of mental drama that really isn't benefiting you, you can be like, hey thoughts. Thank you for the drama. I appreciate it. You observe your thoughts from a distance, and then you have the power again to choose the thoughts you want or let those thoughts go.
I'm the type, I'm like talking to myself.
Okay, good. That's what you do. Perfect. Congrats. As long as you're aware. As long as you're aware. If you're holding, what is awareness? If you're holding tension and maybe you're in a rush or a hurry and you're really holding on to the wheel, like the car, the wheel. It's called a wheel, yeah? Wheel, yeah. and you're full of tension, and you're like, ugh, you're thinking, why is this? Traffic here! And you're holding this tension in your face and your body, and you're everywhere. Awareness is, hey, relax. Relax the muscles. Why all this tension? When you have tension in your body, you're creating stress. That's awareness. Awareness is breathing. Am I paying attention to my breathing? Am I paying attention to my posture? Am I paying attention to this food that I'm eating? Or am I just shoving it in my face? Or am I actually tasting the food? So awareness training is every day, all day, wherever you want. As long as you are in charge of your mind and your mind doesn't run you. If the program isn't really a good one.
I have one more short question regarding our private lives and understanding our children. This boss part of the brain you told us is developed around 25 years.
Long time.
But long time. But in teenage years, or is it like half developed, or how not half developed? And what to do with the kids?
Well, so here's the thing. We're on purpose made that way so that children can, or teenagers can act out in life and try new adventures. It's the point of the brain to be designed that way. But kids, I work with kids from 10 years onwards, and they meditate, and I teach them awareness of thoughts, and I teach them emotional intelligence, and I teach them,
it's okay to teach them not to act like without a boss, but to try to
so if they're
be aware of.
Or like, let's say they're acting out and they're very emotional and like jumping, I don't know, it's really not a pleasing sight. And you say, hey, you always have to validate the emotion, and you say, hey, I'm noticing like this, whatever's going on. I see you, I see your sadness. It's because we're not going to the park, right? But acting like this isn't appropriate. You always have to explain what's going on instead of, leave me alone, get out of here. It's like, hey, I validate your emotions, but acting that way, let's say, that's just one example out of many, isn't appropriate, you know? So that it gives the kid the decision, oh, I can be in charge how I use my emotion, how I channel it into a behavior that's productive for me. So emotions, behavior, they don't have to necessarily, I mean, it's the same with grown-ups. You can tell your husband, I mean, I see you're mad, but, you know, behaving this way isn't okay. It's about consciousness. It's all about awareness.